Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Rebellious Wellness Over 50. Today, I am super honored to have Dr. Michael Roizen, somebody I've been following for a long time. Many of you probably know his work, if not from more recent books about stopping the aging clock, but from You, the Owner's Manual, which is, gosh, that took off. It was you and Dr. Oz, right?
Right.
Yeah.
For that, I'm the one who's honored one. And in 1998, when we published Real Age, Are You As Young As You Can Be, which is also a #1 New York Times bestseller, we said that 60 could be the new 40. That's come to pass. We now believe that 90 is likely to be the new 40 within a decade. And so that's why I'm still as active as I am.
And you are, if you don't mind me asking, in your 70s.
I'm 78. Sure, I don't mind.
You look fabulous for 78. You sound fabulous. I mean, you sound very vibrant and alive, which would make sense because the great age reboot, Real Age, that was also your brainchild, the Real Age. It was a questionnaire, if I remember correctly.
Well, Real Age is an online because it has to be covariate. So Real Age is the net present value of your health choices relating to both disability and risk of dying, so that we said you can be pretty easily 20 years younger than your calendar age. I'm a little more than that younger than my calendar age on the Real Age test. The company got bought by Hearst and then by ShareCare, so you can still do the Real Age program updated at sharecare.com, or a
Okay.
smaller version of it called Actual Age at longevityplaybook.com. And now we think that it's very likely within 10 years, the research into the mechanism of aging has advanced fast enough that it's likely that you're going to be able to reboot from whatever your current age is back to your 40s. So the extension of life won't be extension at the end of life, but will be, instead of your 30s to 60s being 30 years, it'll be something like 60 years.
Wow. And all of that is good news if we have, as you have coined the phrase, prime living years. I know some people listening are thinking, I don't want to live to be 100, because they're scared. They see other people that are aging not in great health, declining mentally, physically. Can you speak to that?
Yeah, so when we talk about real age, it's your risk of disability, or actual age, it's your risk of disability and dying compared to your calendar age, or compared. And we know that if you set the clock at 80 as when you're likely to die, you're much less likely to get disability or death when you're 45 or 50. And so you're now able, we now know that 60 can be 40, that is, or 80 can be 60, that is, physiologically, and with a risk of dying and death of someone who's 60, not someone who's 80, with the vibrancy of someone who's 60 or someone who's 20 to 25 years younger. That's very doable now based on what we know from repeated both randomized controlled trials and epidemiologic studies. We think, based on this, that you're going to be able to extend that period of 30 to 60, not just 30 to by 20 years as you can now from 30 to 80, but by, in fact, another 30. That is a huge benefit. That is, we're about to be able, we think, and it's with an 80% likelihood based on the research that has been in different animals now, 14 shots on goal, if you will, from mechanism of aging research, that one of those is likely within the next 10 years to get the breakthrough to be able to reset you from 90, reset your memory, that is, not losing memory, but maintaining your cognitive function 20 to 40 years longer than you currently think likely. And instead of your mobility being that of a 100 or 110-year-old, it'll be that of a 60 or 50-year-old. So you're going to be able to maintain a lot of that And one of the things we know is that you want to avoid structural change now so that you are able to get the benefits of that reboot when and if it comes.
Which brings us to the point of what we do now, bad decisions now versus bad outcomes later, right? So, can you talk to us a little bit? I know you have a book about what to eat when, and so clearly diet enters into it. I think you have 6 parameters of health. And I love that one of your things is connection because it's so important that we stay connected to other humans, the more likely we get into this age of more machines and screens. But can you talk to us a little bit about what it takes to be prepared for this longevity, this increased longevity?
What we know comes from some studies of people who've had gene editing succeed and gene editing not succeed. So let me give you a specific example.
Sure.
Amyloid heart failure, different than amyloid from the brain. It's an amyloid, an abnormal protein, just one base pair abnormality induced in the liver creates an abnormal amyloid, which can go to the heart and cause heart failure. Well, they took 12 people with amyloid induced heart failure whose hearts ejected only 12% or less ejection fraction.
Wow.
Normally, your ejection fraction, as you know, Gregory Ann, is 55 to 65%. That is the amount of blood ejected per squeeze of the heart compared to how much is in there. So they eject 55 to 65% of the blood in there out to the rest of the body to provide energy normally. Well, these people had less than 12 of them. So they had less than 6 months, maybe even less than 6 weeks to live. They were
Wow.
basically bedridden. If they even got to a chair, someone had to get them into the chair because they didn't have enough energy to get in the chair.
Hmm.
They barely have enough energy to swallow. But that's caused by this abnormal amyloid. So in these 12 people, they gene edited out that gene that caused the production of that abnormal amyloid protein. And 7 of the 12 got ejection fractions over 35%, now have an estimated life expectancy of 18 years
Wow.
as opposed to less than 6 months. Why didn't the other 5? Because they had structural change so severe as they couldn't get a, if you will, the rebooting of that gene couldn't help their heart because it was so severely damaged. So the key is to avoid that severe damage. We don't know where that dividing line is yet, but what that means is that all of us should do as many of the 181 things in the actual age or longevity playbook program or the real age program that have been shown in at least 2 studies in humans to affect your rate of aging. Everything, and yes, the most important is stress management, which means posse, purpose, and play. Those are the most important things that you can do. But there are a whole bunch of easy ones, 4 different smells a day. So I every day will smell, and it's a deep smell, coffee, because that somehow affects your olfactory nerve 4 different smells. So you can do alcohol, you can do rosemary or lavender, whatever smells you want to do, but 4 deep smells a day. Half a tablespoon of extra virgin olive oil a day. It's simple. It is four cups of coffee in addition to smelling it. You should drink it, if you will. So it
Good.
is it is just simple things that make, in addition to, everyone knows about stress management, and you're right, it is posse, purpose, and play that are most important. A lot of people know about physical activity. It's actually number 3. Diet is number 2 in importance. Stress management is number 1. Food choices, portion size, and time of eating is number 2. Number 3 is the 4 components of physical activity. Number 4 is avoiding unforced errors. And 5, and part of this is because some of the others, it is brain health and sleep, if you will. But there literally are 181 things that we know that you can do that make a difference to your rate of aging and to help you get prepared for that reboot if it comes. And again, we think it's been in 14 different shots on goal, in at least two animal species each. When I said to one of the Montreal Canadiens, a retired Montreal Canadian player who I was talking to a large group of wealth managers, and he's become a wealth manager recently. He's a former Montreal Canadian player, and I said, if you take 14 shots on goal, what's the chance one of them will go in? He said 100. So whether it's 80% as we estimate, or 100% as the a Montreal Canadian from the championship years would say, it is one of those.
So what do we say to people who have already got structural impairment or damage, or whether it's the heart, the back, the knees, the gut? What about them?
You can do as much as possible because we don't know where that dividing line is. We don't know whether it is someone with a bone on bone knee arthritis or knee osteoarthritis. I gave this talk on Friday, just Friday, said, I'm scheduled to undergo a knee replacement on Monday. Is it too late? And I said, well, you need the knee replacement to be able to do physical activity to maintain everything else, because physical activity isn't just good for your knees, it's good for your cardiovascular system, it's superb for your brain. It helps a lot of other systems and your immune system, obviously, as well. But I said, if you ask me for what will be in 4 years, if your other knee would require it in 4 years, will we have something, or should you plan on in 4 years? I said, my guess is that within 4 years, we will have something that regrows your own stem cells and allows you to regrow cartilage. The problem with most stem cell treatments for knees or joints, etc., is they're giving you a bunch of exosomes, which are good. They call forth your stem cells. They're giving you 500 to 800 stem cells. You need 30 million to 60 million based on the data to regrow things like that. And very few places will take it out of your bone marrow, grow it in culture, very expensive, and give it back to you in the right place. So it isn't stem cells yet, but we think there are three ways that you can regrow your own stem cells, at least in the animal models. And we think it is likely that you're going to be able to have that within, 4 years is optimistic. Within 10 years is probably pessimistic. So sometime in that area, we'll know whether that works in humans as well as in the animal models. It's now being tested in veterinary approval processes. It's in phase 2 or phase 3 of veterinary trials. Dogs develop hind limb arthritis prominently. And so one of the ways that companies are trying to get to the market quicker is to prepare it for dogs. And I suppose some people will borrow from their dogs early.
Borrow their stem cells.
Assuming it works.
You talk about in the introduction, I think, to your book, the Reboot book, about 3D printing organs and some of this crazy sounding sci-fi sounding stuff. What else lies ahead for us?
Well, that's actually, I don't know, you probably know of Dean Kamen. Dean Kamen is this marvelous inventor. I think he lives in New Hampshire. 3 years ago, he said, within 5 years, I'm going to be able to 3D print for you a artificial heart. He now has said it's coming next year, and I'm
What?
going to announce it next year. He's got this kidney already done, that I know the Cleveland Clinic where I work has just been investigating and sent a team to New Hampshire, and he's coming here. So we think this is the 3D printing of even difficult organs like the kidney and heart and liver are going to be possible. He's amazing. He delivers. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what he does. This at the Lake Nona Impact Forum every year. He comes and gives a talk about one of his new crazy ideas. The interesting thing about his crazy ideas is they all come to fruition. I should tell you, he is one of my heroes, if you will, in the world, because he has done a robot Olympics. I think it's called First Olympics or something like that. first robots. I don't know the first global. I don't know the full name other than its first, but he started it only about 3 or 4 years ago for countries sending one team that made robots, and they compete in a Olympic style match to see the top robot makers, if you will.
Uh-huh.
These kids, they're high
Of
school
course. Yeah.
takes. And it's an amazing product. If you look at what they create every year, it is amazing. So that's still going on. And he tells us that within a couple of years, they will have a robot that's totally able to care for you. When you're
That'll,
undergoing a knee replacement or anything else, that they will be able to replace a caregiver so the caregiver doesn't get as much stress.
wow. Well, and you just said that stress is one of the things we need to watch. So that would, I know that caregiving is extremely stressful for people.
Well, just to show you how stressful it is, 50% of the caregivers over the age of 55 die before the person they're caring for. That's
What?
about as stressful a thing as you can get.
Wow. Well, there goes a lot of people that might have signed up for the job. I read a lot of science journals and things, and metformin is a drug that's used for, if I remember correctly, diabetics, but it has become this darling of the anti-aging group, that it might somehow reverse aging. Can you talk about metformin in case anybody's listening thinking they might take it?
Fine. So, in fact, I would say that the data aren't good enough for anyone without prediabetes or diabetes to take it. Neil Bazaral is the one who's been pushing its study in what he calls the TAME study, which looks at aging and metformin, A and M in that TAME
Okay.
language. It decreases glucose levels in blood. And because of that, and because glucose is such a problem in inhibiting your immune system, inhibiting your white cell and killer cell functioning, in causing cancer and even other things to grow, plaque in your arteries through inflammation. That's why this. But the data are in the data in the initial 2014 studies showed that people who got metformin lived longer, that is, diabetics who were getting, than even people who did not have diabetes and weren't treated with metformin. That is, it reversed some of the shortening of age, of length of life that diabetics have. In other studies that have tried to replicate that from the Netherlands, they didn't find that. And in fact, they found no benefit. And we know from some other studies that there's a strong indication that if you do physical activity, metformin negates the benefits of physical activity on longevity. For those who would say I should be taking metformin only if you don't do exercise, and maybe not. Give Neil Bazaral, who's done a lot of study on this, a lot of credit for bringing it up and bringing the problem with glucose up. And hopefully we'll find out from the study whether his hypothesis that this is good for all does in fact prove true.
Mhm.
For now, I would say there's several reasons not to take it, including what I've given you. One of the others is it's very effective at reversing prediabetes, but it loses its effectiveness the longer you've taken it
Hmm.
without having prediabetes. So if you're worried about prediabetes as a problem as you get older, you probably shouldn't take it when you're younger.
Hmm. Interesting. So I have a power of five, like you have your five. And one of them is learn to balance your blood sugar. And as I've learned more and more about the science and thinking about glucose, continuous glucose monitors, many things other than what we eat can raise our blood sugar. And it gets a little confusing. Somebody's blood sugar is nice and even. They go out for a high cardio event and their blood sugar shoots up. And then they say, well, maybe I shouldn't be exercising. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, your blood sugar will go up, your liver gets turned on, but you turn on your genes e when you do exercise or stress management or depending on what foods. But exercise turns on gene functioning. This is incredible in the liver to produce more glucose because that's what your muscles use as quick energy. They have to provide the ATP and CTP that you use for contracting. And so you will see a little blip when you start, and then it'll go down over time while you're exercising as you're using it.
Mm.
And then when you stop, it will go up again, which is why maybe people in the olden days had a cool down period.
Yeah.
You didn't stop the marathon immediately, but you walked for the next 5 minutes.
Hmm.
That's about what it takes, 5 minutes to use that little extra blip at the end by just walking. So there should be a cool down period. I'm a strong believer as you are normalizing blood glucose. You can do that with a continuous blood glucose monitor to monitor yourself for a couple weeks. It's very easy. And in fact, almost all of I think Dexcom and Freestyle Libre, the two brands that I've prescribed and that we use, and I don't know if there's another one, but those are the common ones, will both give you a free trial. And in that 2 weeks, you can find out if you do things, what you're doing right and wrong. Maybe you'll want to keep it on for a month and a half or 2 months while you go through your full 2 month routine. But in any case, it does spike a little bit and it does spike after you stop. But by doing the cool down, you can get rid of those spikes and avoid that increase in blood glucose. And it is really peak levels that we think are most problematic.
Is there an accurate test for telomeres and should we care?
The tests for telomeres are accurate, but are variable based on recent habits and what you've done, at least from the literature. What do I mean by that? Well, you can measure the telomeres in three different types of white cells and get three radically different answers.
Hmm.
And so we don't know which of those is best to reflect what your stem cell telomeres are really doing. In other words, our stem cells are the matriarchs of the human body. They not only form everything, but like mothers, they fix things. And it is not the telomeres we think on the white cells or on some other cell that is important. It is we think the telomeres on your stem cells are most important because they repair things. And let me give you an example.
Okay.
In a heart transplant, this is how it was discovered, really, what stem cells do in repair functioning. In a heart transplant from a male heart into a female at the Cleveland Clinic, I think in 1996 or so, that male heart then had a heart attack in that female body. But the woman got to the clinic in time to get opening of her arteries in her heart. Her ejection fraction, remember I said it's normally 55 to 65%. It was around 55% in that transplanted heart before her heart attack. It went down to about 30 immediately thereafter. But over the next 6 weeks, it returned to 55%. And when they biopsied the heart to see what was going on, it was the female's stem cells that had repaired that male heart. So because she got there fast enough, your body, the cells that are dying send out a signal. We call them exosomes, some of us do. And those exosomes call forth your stem cells, but you've got to have the blood supply open. The problem is we run out of stem cells. So we only get for our stem cells between 70 and 110 duplications of each cell, and we run out of them. The telomeres are what causes us to run out of them. The telomeres are like protective caps on your shoelace, but they get 6 base pairs shorter every duplication. and they're only about 1,000 base pairs. And when they get to that 300 or so level, they stop letting you duplicate. So someplace between 70 and 110 duplications is what you get, and then you run out of that telomere. So anything that would allow us to increase those telomeres on our stem cells without doing it on other cells is probably a good thing. And so that's where we want to measure it. How do you measure it? Well, you got to do a biopsy of your bone marrow to get those stem cells.
Mm.
That's pretty painful, and not many humans are willing to do it. Longo has done it in animal models with his 5-day fasting mimicking
Hmm.
diet and shown that you can elongate those with this 5-day fasting mimicking diet followed by going back on normal Mediterranean diet for the animals, an animal Mediterranean diet, if you and shown that I think he also did that the stem cell telomere length in some graduate students. They'll volunteer for just about anything. But in any case, I think he also did that, and that is what his Prolon or his soup in the early experiment diet was based on. Low protein, so you don't turn on mTOR, low carbohydrate, so you don't have a high glucose, if you will, value, and getting you to ketosis by day 3.5 or so. So you've got a day and a half of ketosis in that 5 consecutive day window that he does this once a month.
I have intermittent fasting on my list of things that I wanted to ask you. In terms of weight loss, yes, lowering, bad markers, good ones, but in terms of longevity, does it benefit people?
Well, we know the 5-day mimicking diet of Longo, which is really a 5 days of 1,000 calories the first day, 750 calories for the next 4 days. Initially was a tomato soup based, and it's actually a delicious 36 ounces of diced tomatoes, 12 ounces of corn niblets, 48 ounces of water, onions, and spices to taste. We know that reset the genes, allowed you to grow telomeres that is, grow stem cells when you resumed a normal diet afterwards. That fasting itself doesn't do that. Fasting just gives you the reset that allows a normal diet to do it. So now, do we know that 8 hours of eating and 16 hours of fasting a day does that? It seems to do it in animal models, but no place near as profoundly. Do we know that 3 days of a water fast does it? No. We have no real data, the way Walter Longo has characterized the 5-day, and the 5-day low calorie is very doable. I think he supports his research with the Prolon company, but for those of us who also care for Medicare and Medicaid patients, the 5 days of soup, which was initially used in the graduate students, works just as well and maybe tastes almost as good.
Probably tastes better. So what didn't we talk about? I'm curious about the posse aspect of this.
Well,
People, I think, underestimate how important it is.
yeah, we before we get to there, we
Yeah.
didn't talk about, and I get asked a ton about supplements, and there are
Oh.
longevity.com and the scientific advisory board, we've been asked to evaluate about 54 supplements or small molecules like metformin, and 17 of them clearly have more benefit than risk, including for those people who take a baby aspirin a day, bovine colostrum, 2,000 milligrams a day, including CoQ10, including a baby aspirin twice a day to decrease inflammation with a half glass of warm water before and after in the bovine colostrum, including a probiotic like True Biotics, which seems to decrease both osteoporosis and decrease a number of upper respiratory infections, including vitamin D in a high enough dose to get you above 50, maybe above 60 in the usual scale that is measured, including half a multivitamin twice a day to keep a more stable level than just one multivitamin because you'll pee out the urinary one. So there are a bunch of these things that have been shown to be a sizable benefit, but none of them come close to being as important to slowing your rate of aging or helping you stay, as we say, keep your real age younger, your actual age younger, as having a posse, purpose, and play. So those are the most important things. So we live in an era of a high stress. When we measured stress levels on the perceived stress scale in 2014 and 15, and we did it in 14 different countries. It wasn't just in the United States. We did it in the UK and in France. We did it in China, India. We did it in South America. We did it in UAE, etc. Any one of these countries, we are living at a stress level that was 5 standard deviations above the mean when that scale was developed at the University of Pittsburgh in 79 to 83. So we're living 5 standard deviations above that. And the great news is that having friends that you can rely on, a posse, as we say, 6 friends. So what does that mean? Many of us have one or two, a spouse, someone else we're willing to be vulnerable to. But to get those 6, it means you have to kind of rekindle and nourish your posse. It's actually work to do that, but that work gives you an awful lot of benefit. So on Sundays, I'll call a friend who I haven't talked to recently every Sunday to try and do that, as well as calling other friends that I've kept up with. And purpose, well, you're helping me with my purpose, Gregory Ann, because if you will, my purpose is helping people live younger, longer, and help them prepare for the reboot if it comes, which it, as again I said, it's likely that it does. And play, I consider talking with you play, if you will, but it's really purpose. And I play ping pong with one of my close friends at least once a week, and I play pickleball another day a week. I used to play a lot of squash, but I'm not in shape to do that anymore.
You were quite a celebrated squash player, from what I read.
I did
Award winning.
I did captain the U.S. team in the Pan American Games way back when, but those days have faded. The problem
Okay.
with being a competitive athlete in a sport, as I found, is that you'd rather kill yourself, so to speak, than lose a point. And there comes a point where you have to say, I'm no longer going to kill myself to win. I'm going to switch to a sport that I'm not that competitive in anymore so that I don't overdo it.
Yeah, that's funny. It would be kind of against your whole mission if you were going after the point, killing yourself for the point.
I don't know of one competitive athlete who doesn't give up their body for their sport. That if you're lucky enough to survive it, LeBron James has by taking care of his body and doing
Mm.
really good things for himself. It is don't keep abusing it till you get an injury that's your ability to live longer, younger.
Well, I want to tell people where to find all this good stuff. The longevityplaybook.com is sort of a landing page where you go to sign up for your newsletter and the information that follows.
Right. So, well, it's a free newsletter, 250 words. And, I always thought the words in the summary would be the most enjoyable part. But we have a cartoon there that the CEO said we should put on each thing that relates to it. One of my favorites is the one where we talked about breathing and double deep breathing to improve diaphragm functioning. And so when we talked about that, we said, with all else I've got to worry about, you're making me think about my breathing too. But in any case, there's a cartoon, and it turns out we have 100 and I think it's 88,000 subscribers to the newsletter. The largest thing the subscribers say they like is the darn cartoon.
That's too funny.
But it does pertain to the message, the recent study on something in longevity that is in the newsletter.
Well, and I imagine that humor has to be good for us.
It
Laughing? Yeah.
It is. It's one of those things that helps relieve stress. So a lot of things work through stress and avoiding loneliness, that is having the posse, is the most powerful posse purpose and play are the most powerful at avoiding the aging effects that stress inevitably would have on us without those.
Well, you'll like this story, I think. I have 12 friends that I met, about a third of them in grammar school, fifth grade, and the rest in high school. And we see each other all the time. We rent a house at the beach once a year. We go to brunch at my house in the spring. And it was really during COVID because we couldn't visit. We decided to do every Saturday at 5 o'clock. I would open up my Zoom, and if people showed up, they showed up. Well, we all showed up week after week after week. And that, what you were saying, you have to nurture and kind of rekindle. Even though we were all friends, some were closer than the other. Now we're just this beautiful, cohesive thing. And we can, each one of us could go to any one of the other people
Oh,
and
isn't,
it would be there. They would be there for you. Yeah.
oh, that's so wonderful.
Yeah. It's
So
really great.
congratulations on that. It's a real
Thanks.
benefit of Zoom, isn't it?
It really, yes, as many times as we got tired of Zooming, we always looked forward to that Saturday. Which of your books do you have a favorite book, like a favorite child? You have so many. I want to refer people.
Although you probably can't get it anymore, but the Real Age Makeover, which we have a lot of data in, and these stories of my patients who did do a makeover is one of my favorites. So is This Is Your Do-Over. That book came out, I think, in 2017. But I must tell you that I really do think that this book, The Great Age Reboot, is the best we've done.
Yeah. I mean, the other ones certainly, like you said, they have great data and stories, and we all love hearing stories of people that have gotten through something and done great things with their life. But the most recent book is That's What's Happening Right Now. This is, I think, when I was reading through it, it gave me hope on the one hand, and it also gave me a little bit of check-in, like, Greg, are you really doing enough? Could you be doing more? So now I have to go through your long list, and I'm going to start smelling my coffee more in the morning before I drink it.
Right. Well, there are 40 things, for women, they worry about memory most. Men worry about musculoskeletal, if you will, mobility and being able to get around. There are 40 things that change your rate of brain aging that any one of us can do, such as those smells or such as the extra virgin olive oil or getting your flu shot every year. But there are 40 things that have been shown in at least two studies in humans. And almost all of those is good for mobility as well.
Hmm.
One of those that came out this last week that is in there is practicing yoga. So yoga is both good for the brain, and that is the it is probably a stress relief because it was the
Mm.
breathing component of yoga that was found to be best for the brain, but it also is good at preventing falls. So guys and gals should be doing a calm version of yoga.
As
Now,
opposed to an Ashtanga version of yoga, which maybe not so
well,
calm,
well, that may be good as well. It is muscular stress.
for sure.
And so that may be very good from a physical activity as well as component. Wasn't studied in this recent study on
Okay.
what's good for your brain. It was the other form that was studied and shown to be so excellent.
So I want you to leave my listeners with something encouraging because this could sort of sound overwhelming. 40 things, 100 things, science reports, all that.
Well, they're all easy, and just start with one or two
Okay.
on them. And what's the key? The key is you get to control 90, at least 80%, and the most recent identical twin study, 93%
Wow.
of which of your genes is making proteins, and your proteins make you. And by stressing them a little bit, by doing speed of processing exercises for your brain, you repair the neurons in your brain. You turn on repair neurons. By jumping on a hard surface, you cause a little fracture in your bone, a little break, assuming your doctor allows you to do it, and you turn on a gene that repairs your bone, making it stronger, less likely to have you to have a fall that's disabling. And when you stress a muscle by doing resistance exercise, you cause a little tear in the muscle and you turn on a gene that repairs your muscle to be stronger. So the main message is you have enormous capabilities of turning on your repair systems, and it's pretty easy to do it.
Well, that sounds like hope to me. Dr. Michael Roizen, thank you so much for being here. It was really a delight to speak with you and so interesting. I love all your stories and science. Hey, everybody, I hope you've enjoyed that episode, and I thank you for listening. I'd love to connect with you on social media if you happen to play over there on Instagram and Facebook. I'm at RebelWell50. LinkedIn, of course, is my name. And on TikTok, just look for the Rebellious Wellness Over 50 page. And I look forward to connecting. You know, this is a big year of connection for us. This is how we get through tough times, is being in community with like-minded people. And if you're a listener, I believe we are.